Hello, this is Paulo with Meditation Amsterdam. And in today's video, we are going to talk about how freedom sits hidden between worry and fear, and how our ability to distinguish between those two is a crucial step in working out our shadow, in resolving our emotional hangups, and becoming ever less reactive and less compelled to act in ways that are unwholesome, uncalibrated, unbalanced, and instead to live a life that is harmonious, loving, and free. And so worry or stress is something that is very, very prevalent in our times. And it seems to be a normal state of affairs, right? So that we consider it normal to worry about this, that, or the other. And we live our lives with several worries about the different circumstances or aspects of our lives, whether it is physical health, mental well-being, our relationships, our economic sustenance, what legacy we may leave behind, you name it. There are as many factors out there as worries to be had about them. And we try to, in worrying, tackle things on a level that is unfortunately very far down the causal chain of how things work. So what is important to understand is that worry is a sort of byproduct or a second tier effect in a causal chain that we want to try and tackle higher up the chain, so to speak, or higher in the hierarchy. What we could imagine is that worry is a mental exercise in trying to weigh options, understand circumstances, imagine scenarios and how they're going to pan out, and to do so compulsively in our head, so that when we worry, we typically start to spin our wheels in our head and try to use our logic and our memory to, as I said, paint scenarios or try to predict what's going to happen and so on. Now, here's what's important to understand is that worry is indeed a mental or a thinking-based phenomenon. Now, to be sure, we don't do worrying. It kind of happens to us. And what's important is to understand that the further outside of ourselves we try to find the solution for that worry, the less likely we are to find it, because the further we get away from the cause of the worry. Now, to our senses and to our mind, it appears as if the cause of the worry is outside of us. It's a circumstance that we're trying to tackle. And it really does seem that way. However, if we do one small trick, which is to turn our attention inward systematically, we come to find that every worry in our head is actually triggered by a hidden fear in our heart. Okay? And that's the big one, is that worrying, as necessary as it may seem, I can't stop worrying about such and such because otherwise something will happen, or as unstoppable as it may seem, right? I just keep worrying about this even though I don't want to, or as responsible as it may seem. In other words, what kind of person are you that you're not worrying about such and such thing coming to pass? So worry gets a kind of necessary evil type of status in our popular culture, is triggered is not only triggered by an underlying fear, but it actually serves the purpose of us not having to feel that fear. In other words, worry is an escape mechanism. It makes us feel like we're grappling with things. I'm grappling with this problem. I'm worrying, my head is spinning, I'm losing sleep. I'm doing all these things to grapple with the problem. I'm doing anything but feeling the fear that triggers the worry. And that's because we don't really want to feel the fear that triggers the worry, because it's freaking scary. That's why, right? So worry is a dissociative mechanism of the mind. In our culture, we believe that if we worry about things, we are being responsible and we are grappling them and finding ways to tackle them. Now, on a practical level, as I've said in previous videos, that might be the case. You do need to think about the practical what to do about things. But worry carries a certain flavor to it that is beyond the practical, and it is touching on the emotional. And as uncomfortable as worry may feel, you can be certain that while you worry and while your head is spinning, you are very definitely, so this is not even a question, unable to simply sit with the tremendous emotional discomfort that things like uncertainty or vulnerability or inadequacy or abandonment might feel to you. Okay, those are much more primal feelings that you can experience inside. And while you worry, the one thing you don't have to worry about while you are worrying is to feel primal fears inside. Those have been, your attention has veered away from them. Yep. So as it turns out, and by the title of the video, freedom sits hidden between worry and fear. Because if you find yourself worrying, and instead of following the trail of that worry towards external circumstances or a mental future or whatever, you notice the worry and you use it as an inroad to travel into fear, which is only ever really internal. You can't be afraid outside of yourself by definition. Worry pretends to be worried about something outside of you, but fear is essentially yours. It is absolutely primary to your experience. And in a sense, when you turn from worry to fear, even though it feels incredibly uncomfortable, you are, in essence, turning the locus of control back to yourself. Now, that's not to say that you can control the fears, but it is to say that you are no longer trying to tackle the worry at the level of causes outside of you. You are tackling the worry at the root cause, which is the fear within. And that is power. It's, in the words of the Dark Knight, it's not the power you wanted, but it is the one you need, right? It is the one that actually does the trick at the end of the day. Now, if you turn your attention inward and you feel the primal fears that the worry is distracting you from, you're going to have to dance with those for a while, and eventually you'll come to resolve them and the worry will disappear on its own. Now what you will be facing are circumstances, some of which are convenient, some of which are inconvenient. Some of them are comfortable, some are uncomfortable, some of them are pleasant, some of them are unpleasant, but the worrisome flavor will have been filed away at, or almost alchemically transformed into just nothing, really, right? Into actually the proactive ability to engage with things, to face things, and to associate and respond, right? So responsibility comes from having the right view of what it is that you're looking at, when the fear, the unconscious fear that came from past events, is no longer clouding your judgment. So, and this is a very interesting thing. Sometimes worry and fear are kind of taken as equivalents, and I don't want to get into a semantic game either about what each of them means, but for practical purposes in this video, I would take worry as the spinning of the wheels in your head, fueled by a discomfort that you want to simply push away or, kind of ignore, while we go around sort of being angry at people or blaming or trying to tackle circumstances with a lot of emotional charge for us. Whilst fear, I define, again, for the practical purposes of this video, as primal negative affects that scare the hell out of us, right? I mentioned a few, such as abandonment, such as vulnerability, such as lack of adequacy or rejection, you name it, right? So those are the things that we don't want to feel. They are the ones that trigger the worrisome elements of a situation in the first place. And so given the choice, one's worry is in the picture of going outward to tackle the source of the worry, or going inward to tackle the thing that creates the worry in the first place. We want to do the outward movement on the practical sense, but we want to do the inward movement to resolve the fundamental sense of fear that it might be understood and worked with, and that removes then the worry, and eventually we are free. Right? So when we do enough of this, then our worries become shorter lived. And if we do enough of this shadow work, it is also impossible to go through a worry without noticing very, very clearly the fear that sits underneath. It doesn't make it any more comfortable, I must say. And if anything, it makes it far, far more uncomfortable, because the worrying mechanism was kicking in automatically in the past, and attention-wise, veiling the fear. So we were not feeling it directly. So we are, in essence, removing those dams in the system that make it so that negative affects can now find free passage towards our conscious mind, and they feel very unpleasant, right? There's no need to dress that up in any other kind of way, but it is the wholesome way to do things, yeah. And if we do it enough, as I said, things do start to change in very interesting ways. So that is today's video. It's a very it's a worthwhile, small and practical difference that I think can help us understand a little bit better the topic, and I share it for whatever it's worth, and I'm curious what you guys make of it. So do share that in the comment section, and if you think that these topics are interesting and might help others, then your liking, sharing and subscribing always helps the channel, and I'll be back with more videos pretty soon. Thanks for listening so far. Cheerio and bye-bye.